"You're too old to fly with us to Hawaii. Just look after the house," said my daughter, dismissing me as if I were useless. They flew off on a paradise vacation with my in-laws, who were even older than me, while I stayed behind in the house they considered their inheritance. When they returned, the house was gone, and so was I. They called me 43 Taru times. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. Brochures about Hawaii lay on my coffee table like colorful promises. My daughter Lauren opened them wide, her manicured fingers tracing the golden beaches, and her husband Bradley leaned over her shoulder, nodding in approval. Bradley's parents, Walter and Margaret Mitchell, were sitting comfortably on my couch, already discussing the departure time and hotel amenities, as if this vacation was theirs by birthright. "The Maui resort looks perfect," Lauren announced, her voice bubbling with excitement. 4 bedrooms, ocean view, private beach access. I reached for one of the brochures. "That sounds wonderful. When do we, Dad?" Lauren's hand intercepted mine, gently but firmly, pushing the glossy paper away. "You're too old for such adventures." The words hit like ice water. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "Better stay home and watch all the house," she continued, her tone casual. "Matter of fact, we're flying with Bradley's mom and dad. It's their dream trip, you know." Walter chuckled from the couch. "Been saving for this for years. Can't wait to see those sunsets. The kids will love the snorkeling," Margaret added, already claiming experiences that hadn't happened yet. I stared at them. Walter was 64, 2 years older than me. Margaret, 61. Yet somehow I was too old, while they were perfect traveling companions. "I've never been to Hawaii," I said quietly. Bradley shrugged. "Maybe next time, Pops. This trip's kind of a family thing." Family? The word twisted in my chest. I watched them continue planning around me, over me, through me. Lauren pulled out her phone, showing Margaret photos of restaurants they'd researched. Bradley grabbed another brochure, pointing out activities. They moved with the easy confidence of people who'd already decided everything without consulting the man whose house they lived in, whose generosity had sheltered them for 5 years. "The flight leaves Thursday morning," Lauren said, not looking at me. "We'll be gone 10 days. You'll have the whole place to yourself. Think of it as a little vacation, too. A vacation from what? From providing free housing. From cooking dinners they barely acknowledged. From listening to Bradley's complaints about his credit score while he used my electricity to charge his gaming devices. I stood slowly. My knees protested, a reminder of my 62 years that Lauren seemed so concerned about. I should probably get some things in order then, for house-sitting. "You're the best, Dad." Lauren finally looked up, beaming at me with that smile that once melted my heart when she was 7, and asking for bedtime stories. Now it felt calculated, practiced. Don't worry about anything. Just relax and enjoy the quiet. Walter raised his coffee mug in a mock toast. To family vacations, they all laughed. Even Margaret, who'd met me exactly 4 times, felt comfortable enough to laugh at my exclusion in my own living room. I walked toward the hallway, their voices following me, animated discussions of sunset dinners and helicopter tours, adventures I'd apparently aged out of overnight. The hardwood floor creaked under my feet, the same sound it had made when Sarah and I danced in this very spot on our 30th anniversary. Sarah would have fought for me. She would have insisted I come, would have made it clear that family meant all of us, or none of us. But Sarah was 5 years gone, and I was learning that the daughter we'd raised together saw me very differently than I'd imagined. Behind me, Lauren's voice carried clearly. Mom would have understood. She always said, Dad needed looking after as he got older. I paused at the bedroom doorway. Sarah had never said anything like that, not once. But apparently my late wife's imaginary concerns were now justification for my exclusion from family joy. The evening light slanted through my bedroom window, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor where Sarah's reading chair used to sit. 3 hours later, I sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing the same clothes from dinner. My reflection stared back from Sarah's old vanity mirror, a man who'd apparently become invisible in his own home. The house had settled into its evening rhythm, but voices drifted up from the living room below. Initially, their laughter seemed distant, muffled by the old walls and vents. I'd planned to ignore them completely, maybe read one of the mystery novels Sarah had loved. Then Bradley's voice cut through the ambient noise, clearer than it should have been. Honestly, think he bought that whole too old nonsense? My book fell closed. I froze. Every muscle suddenly taut. Lauren's response floated up through the heating vent near my feet. Dad's always been gullible. Remember when we told him we'd pay him back for the roof repairs? Their laughter followed, casual, dismissive, cruel. I moved carefully toward the vent, my teacher's instincts kicking in. 30 years of classroom management had taught me when to listen and when to act. This was definitely a listening moment. The timing worked out perfectly. Walter's voice joined in. Right after we returned from Hawaii, we put him in that nursing home we researched. My breath caught. Ah, nursing home. Sunset Manor has an opening next month, Margaret added, her tone businesslike. They said they could expedite the paperwork if we paid the deposit up front. How much? Bradley asked. $3,000, Walter replied. But it's worth it to get him settled quickly. Once he's there, this house becomes ours anyway. It's our inheritance. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I gripped the window sill, my knuckles going white against the painted wood. Lauren's voice continued, animated now. I already contacted that real estate agent, Zachary Allen. He thinks we can get at least $800,000, maybe more, with the market the way it is. Split 4 ways, Bradley asked. Obviously. Mom, Dad, you've earned your share dealing with his complaints these past few years. Margaret laughed. He has gotten rather demanding, hasn't he? Always asking about our plans, wanting to be included in everything. The entitlement is unreal, Lauren agreed. Like, Dad, you're 62 except that your active years are behind you. I sank onto the bed, my legs suddenly unreliable. 5 years I'd housed them. 5 years of grocery bills, utility payments, repairs, and maintenance, while Bradley looked for work, and Lauren figured out her next career move. They'd eaten my food, used my car, borrowed my tools, and never once offered genuine gratitude. Bradley's voice grew louder, more excited. The best part is he'll never see it coming. We've got him convinced we're just concerned about his well-being. Dad always was too trusting, Lauren said. Mom used to say, your mother never said anything about your father being a burden. Walter interrupted, surprising me. That woman adored him. Well, she's not here to object now, is she? Lauren's voice had turned sharp. And frankly, this is what's best for everyone. Dad gets professional care. We get financial security. Professional care? They made it sound like a medical necessity rather than convenient disposal. The conversation continued, but I'd heard enough. I stood slowly, walked to my dresser, and opened the bottom drawer where I kept Sarah's jewelry box. Inside, beneath her wedding ring, lay the deed to this house, the house I'd bought with my teaching salary, the house where Sarah and I had planned to grow old together. My reflection stared back from the vanity mirror, but something had changed in those few minutes of eavesdropping. The man looking back at me no longer seemed invisible. I closed the jewelry box quietly and returned to sit on the bed's edge, listening to their voices fade as they moved to another part of the house. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, Bradley's desperate voice from 5 years ago echoed in my memory, competing with tonight's casual cruelty. February 2020. The call had come at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. I remembered the exact time because I'd been grading algebra tests, red pen in hand, when my phone buzzed. David. Bradley's voice had been raw, broken. I need help. I've lost everything. The story had tumbled out between sobs. Online poker sites, cryptocurrency investments that promised guaranteed returns, sports betting apps that had seemed like easy money, $47,000 in credit card debt, the house in foreclosure, Lauren crying in the background, pregnant with their second child. It was supposed to be Bitcoin, he'd whispered. Everyone said it couldn't fail. I put our savings, the home equity loan, everything into it right before the crash. I'd listened, my teacher's heart breaking for this young man who'd somehow become family. Sarah had been gone only months, and the house felt too empty, too quiet. Lauren was my daughter. These were my grandchildren. We have nowhere to go, Bradley had continued. Lauren's parents are, well, you know, Lauren's mom never approved of me. We can't ask them. He'd met Sarah's sister, who'd made her disapproval of Bradley clear from the wedding day, but Sarah wasn't there to moderate family tensions anymore. Now, lying in the darkness, I recognized the calculation behind that desperation. He'd known exactly which emotional buttons to press. The grieving widower, the protective grandfather, the man with an empty house and a generous heart. I rose from bed, walking to the window that overlooked the backyard where my grandchildren played on the swing set I'd installed. The metal frame gleamed silver in the moonlight, $300 from my pension money. Their bicycles leaned against the garage, training wheels I'd purchased, and installed myself because Bradley was too busy looking for work. My hands trembled as I calculated the expenses. 5 years of groceries for 5 people, $18,000 conservatively. Utilities that had doubled with their arrival, another $6,000. The roof repair Lauren had mentioned tonight, $14,000 after the storm damage. Medical bills when their insurance lapsed, car repairs for the vehicle they'd claimed as their own. Over $60,000. $60,000 to people who called me a burden. The algebra was simple, devastating. I'd supported them longer than some marriages lasted, and their gratitude had curdled into entitlement somewhere along the way. Walking to my dresser, I pulled out the small notebook where I'd tracked household expenses since Sarah's death. Her suggestion, actually, "You'll want to know where the money goes, honey." Page after page of Bradley's requests, Lauren's needs, the children's requirements, always urgent, always temporary, always with promises of repayment when things improved. Things had never improved. They'd simply learn to ask for more. The house creaked around me, settling into its late-night quiet. In the morning, they'd wake up refreshed, planning their vacation. They'd pack the suitcases I'd bought them for Christmas, drive to the airport in the car I'd helped finance after their repo scare, board the plane with tickets funded by the inheritance they'd already claimed. Meanwhile, I'd stay behind like an obedient house-sitter, maintaining the home they decided was rightfully theirs. But as I sat there in the dark, surrounded by photographs of my teaching awards and Sarah's garden club certificates, something crystallized in my chest. They'd made a fundamental miscalculation. They'd confused kindness with weakness, generosity with stupidity. 40 years of teaching had required strategy, patience, and the ability to stay 3 steps ahead of students who thought they could outsmart the system. Some lessons were learned through guidance. Others required consequence. I closed the expense notebook and placed it back in the drawer. My movements deliberate and quiet. Tomorrow morning would bring new possibilities. Dawn filtered through the kitchen blinds as I entered, finding the family already buzzing with travel energy. Lauren stood at the counter, organizing boarding passes and travel documents into neat piles. Bradley hunched over his phone, presumably checking flight status, while Walter and Margaret compared sunscreen brands like military strategists planning invasion routes. "Morning, Dad," Lauren called cheerfully, not looking up from her paperwork fortress. "Coffee's fresh if you want some." I poured myself a cup, studying their animated faces with fresh perspective. Yesterday, I would have seen excited family members preparing for adventure. Today I observed co-conspirators celebrating their successful manipulation. "Flight leaves at 10:15, Bradley announced, scrolling through his screen. "We should head out by 8:30 to beat traffic." "Did you remember to pack the camera charger?" Margaret asked Lauren. "Already in the carry-on, plus backup batteries." Their efficiency impressed me. The same organizational skills they'd never applied to finding employment or contributing to household expenses. Apparently, planning luxury vacations required different talents than securing basic income. "Is there anything special you need me to do while house-sitting?" I asked, settling into my usual chair at the breakfast table. Lauren finally glanced up, her expression patronizing. "Just the usual, Dad. Water the plants, check the mail. Maybe have Elizabeth from next door look in on you." Elizabeth Thompson, my 70-year-old neighbor, who'd known Sarah and me for 15 years. Lauren suggested she look in on me as if I were an invalid requiring supervision. "I'm perfectly capable of managing alone," I replied mildly. Bradley snorted. "Right, pups. Just don't try fixing anything that breaks. Call a professional." The irony struck me forcefully. Bradley, who'd lost his house to gambling debts, advising me about responsible home maintenance. I sipped my coffee and nodded agreeably. Of course, I wouldn't want to cause problems. My compliance seemed to satisfy them. Walter folded a tourist map of Maui, tucking it into his shirt pocket. 2 weeks of paradise. We've earned this. Earned through 5 years of free housing, meals, and financial support they'd never acknowledged, let alone reciprocated. "The time will pass quickly," I assured them. "I might catch up on some reading, maybe organize a few things around the house." Lauren's eyes brightened. "That would be perfect, Dad. You could start with the garage. It's gotten so cluttered." Cluttered with their belongings, naturally, items they'd stored there when they moved in, then forgotten as my garage became their personal warehouse. Margaret began transferring items from the counter into her purse. Boarding passes, identification, travel insurance documents. The resort confirmed our suite upgrade. Ocean View Private Lene Concierge Service. "Sounds wonderful," I managed, calculating the cost of such accommodations. Easily $4,000 for 2 weeks. Money they'd never possessed, but somehow now commanded. Bradley's phone chimed. Uber's 5 minutes out. The announcement triggered sudden movement. Suitcases appeared. Last-minute items were grabbed, and general chaos replaced their earlier organization. I stood back, observing their departure preparations with detached interest. "Dad, you're sure you're okay staying alone?" Lauren asked, though her question sounded more like polite formality than genuine concern. "Absolutely. I'll enjoy the quiet." She kissed my cheek, a gesture that once would have warmed my heart. Now, It felt calculated performance for an audience of relatives who expected daughterly affection. Car doors slammed outside. Bradley loaded luggage while the others gathered final belongings. Within 10 minutes, my house would return to the silence I'd supposedly requested. "Take care of yourself," Walter called, wheeling his suitcase toward the door. "Drive safely," I replied, meaning it despite everything. The front door closed with decisive finality. Engine sounds faded down the street. Suddenly, I stood alone in my kitchen, surrounded by abandoned coffee cups and scattered travel brochures. For the first time in 5 years, the house belonged entirely to me again. I walked to my kitchen window and watched their car disappear around the corner, carrying my ungrateful family toward their stolen paradise. 2 weeks, 14 days to consider my options, evaluate my resources, and perhaps demonstrate that the burden they dismissed possessed capabilities they'd never suspected. I finished my coffee slowly, methodically planning my next move. "Need a ride to the airport?" I offered as Bradley struggled with Lauren's oversized suitcase. "Actually, yeah," he panted. "The Uber just canceled. Traffic back up on I-4. Perfect. One final performance as their helpful chauffeur." The drive to Orlando International took 45 minutes through typical Friday morning congestion. I listened to their excited chatter about snorkeling excursions and sunset dinners, marveling at how easily they discussed luxury activities funded by my lifetime of savings. "Remember to take pictures of everything," I told them at passenger drop-off. "I'd love to see Hawaii through your eyes." Lauren hugged me briefly. "We'll send postcards, Dad. Don't work too hard while we're gone." Bradley grabbed the heaviest luggage. "Thanks for the ride, pups. You're a lifesaver, lifesaver." The casual irony wasn't lost on me. I waited until their figures disappeared into the terminal, then drove home with growing anticipation. By 11:15, I was dialing the number Lauren had mentioned in her overheard conversation. "Alan, really, Zachary speaking." "Mr. Allen, this is David Parker. I need to sell my house as quickly as possible." Brief pause. "How quickly are we talking, Mr. Parker?" 2 weeks maximum. I'm willing to price it aggressively for a fast sale. That's ambitious. What's driving the urgency?" I'd prepared for this question. Personal circumstances require immediate liquidity. I understand speed comes at a cost. "Where is the property located?" "Windermere area. Single-family home. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, no mortgage, clear title." His tone shifted, becoming more interested. "No mortgage is excellent for quick sales. What's the approximate square footage?" 2,800 square feet. Updated kitchen. New roof 5 years ago. Established neighborhood. "Mr. Parker, I can be there in an hour if you're available. This timeline is aggressive, but with the right pricing and a cash buyer, it's not impossible." An hour. In 60 minutes, I take the first concrete step toward demonstrating exactly how burdensome this old man could be when properly motivated. "I'll be waiting," I confirmed. After ending the call, I walked through my house with new eyes. These rooms had witnessed Sarah's laughter, Lauren's childhood milestones, family celebrations that felt authentic, back when I believed family meant mutual loyalty and support. Now they represented something different. Assets to be liquidated, equity to be liberated, resources for restructuring the power dynamics that had governed my life for 5 years. I retrieved the house deed from Sarah's jewelry box, along with property tax records and homeowner's insurance documents. Everything Zachary would need to verify my ownership and assess market value. The doorbell rang precisely 1 hour later. Zachary Allen appeared younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, wearing a navy blazer despite the Florida heat. He carried a tablet and measuring tape, prepared for immediate business. "Mr. Parker," he extended his hand. "I appreciate you calling. Based on our conversation, I think we can work together effectively. Come in. I'll show you everything." He stepped into my foyer, already making mental calculations. Beautiful home. Original hardwood floors. Refinished 5 years ago. Sarah, my late wife, insisted on maintaining original character. Smart woman. Original features add significant value. He pulled out his tablet. "Before we tour, let me explain the process for your timeline. 2 weeks means we need cash buyers, minimal contingencies, and competitive pricing. Are you prepared for those requirements?" I nodded. Speed matters more than maximum profit. Excellent. Then let's see what we're working with. As Zachary began his professional assessment, measuring rooms and noting architectural details, I felt something shift in my chest. After years of reacting to other people's decisions, I was finally taking control of my circumstances. Lauren had mentioned Zachary's name while planning to sell my house without my knowledge. Now, he was here at my invitation, working toward my goals, operating on my timeline. The symmetry felt like justice, beginning to balance the scales. 3 hours after Zachary left with his preliminary assessment and promised to start making calls immediately, my phone rang. The display showed an unfamiliar number, but I recognized the area code. Hawaii. Dad. Lauren's voice bubbled through the speaker, bright with tropical enthusiasm. "We made it safely. The resort is absolutely incredible." I settled into my kitchen chair, Zachary's business card still visible on the counter beside his folder of property documents. "I'm so glad you arrived safely. How was the flight?" "Long, but worth it." "Dad, you should see this place. Private beach, infinity pool, spa services, the works. Bradley's already booked us a helicopter tour for tomorrow." "That sounds amazing." I traced the edge of Zachary's card while speaking. "I hope you take lots of pictures." "Oh, we will." The concierge recommended this incredible restaurant for tonight. 5-star dining right on the beach. You'd probably find it too fancy, but we're excited to try it. Too fancy for me. Naturally, I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time. Lauren's tone shifted slightly, becoming more maternal. "How are you managing on your own? You're not trying to cook elaborate meals, are you? Remember what I said about keeping things simple." "I'm taking very good care of everything," I assured her, my eyes moving to the real estate documents scattered across my table. "Actually, keeping quite busy." "Good, good. Just don't overexert yourself. We worried about leaving you alone, but Bradley reminded me that you need to learn independence at your age." Independence? The word carried delicious irony given my morning's activities. "Speaking of independence," Lauren continued, "we've been discussing something. We're actually preparing a little surprise for you when we get back. Something that'll be really good for your future." My grip tightened on the phone. "A surprise? I don't want to spoil it. But let's just say we've found a solution to help you transition into your golden years more comfortably. Professional care, social activities with people your own age, that sort of thing." Professional care, the euphemism they'd used while planning my disposal. "How thoughtful of you," I managed, keeping my voice steady. "Actually, that's interesting timing. I'm preparing a surprise for you." "Two." "Oh," Lauren laughed. "What kind of surprise could you possibly be planning, Dad?" "Well, if I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise, would it?" I allowed myself a small smile. "Let's just say I've been taking care of some important business while you're away. Really important business that'll change everything for all of us." "Business? Dad, you're retired. What kind of business could you possibly?" She stopped herself, probably realizing how dismissive she sounded. I mean, that's sweet, but don't wear yourself out with whatever little project you're working on. Little project, if only she knew. Don't worry about me, I said calmly. I'm handling everything perfectly. In fact, I think you'll be absolutely amazed by what I've accomplished by the time you return. Well, just be careful, okay? We'll call again in a few days to check on you. I'll be here, I confirmed, though the definition of here might be quite different by then. After hanging up, I sat quietly in my kitchen, surrounded by the afternoon silence and the weight of mutual deception. Lauren was preparing to dispose of me in a nursing home, confident I'd never discover their plan. Meanwhile, I was preparing to dispose of the house they considered their inheritance, confident they'd never expect such decisive action from their supposed burden. Both sides planning surprises, both sides convinced of their strategic advantage. Only one side was actually in control. I picked up Zachary's business card and smiled. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Sunday morning brought Zachary's call at precisely 9 o'clock, along with our first potential buyer. James Clark represented a commercial investment group looking for rental properties in established neighborhoods. The timeline is aggressive, Zachary warned me privately before Clark's arrival. Most buyers need weeks to arrange financing. This gentleman deals in cash transactions, but he'll expect significant price flexibility. Cash transactions perfect for my abbreviated schedule. Clark arrived in a silver BMW wearing expensive casual clothes and carrying a leather portfolio, mid-50s confident handshake, the kind of practice efficiency that suggested numerous property acquisitions. Beautiful neighborhood, he observed, scanning my front yard with calculating eyes. Good bones on this house. Walk me through the key selling points. I led him room by room, highlighting the refinished hardwood floors, updated kitchen, and new roof. Each feature I described felt like betraying Sarah's memory, but I pressed forward with professional determination. The master bedroom has excellent natural light, I explained, opening blinds Sarah had chosen 15 years ago. Original crown molding throughout. Clark nodded, making notes on his tablet. What's your motivation for selling? The timeline Zachary mentioned suggests urgency. I'd rehearse this answer. Personal circumstances require immediate liquidity. I'm prepared to price competitively for a quick close. How competitively? That depends on your timeline capabilities. We completed the tour in 30 minutes. Clark examined everything with investor's detachment, calculating rental potential, renovation costs, long-term value appreciation. His interest seemed genuine, his questions practical rather than emotional. The property has excellent fundamentals, he concluded, shaking my hand in the foyer. Let me run numbers with my partners. You'll hear from me by tomorrow afternoon. After he left, I felt cautiously optimistic. Cash buyer. Professional approach. Realistic timeline expectations. Perhaps my plan would unfold smoothly after all. Monday afternoon shattered that optimism. I'm sorry, Mr. Parker, Clark said over the phone. After analysis, the numbers don't align with our investment parameters at the current asking price. My stomach dropped. What would align with your parameters? Honestly, about $60,000 less than you're asking. The rental market in that area doesn't support higher acquisition costs. $60,000 nearly equal to everything I'd invested in Lauren's family over 5 years. That's substantial, I managed. I understand. Take time to consider. My offer stands for 48 hours. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen, staring at Zachary's business card. Was I really willing to lose $60,000 for revenge? Was proving my independence worth such financial sacrifice? For a moment, doubt crept in. Lauren was still my daughter. Bradley, despite his flaws, was father to my grandchildren. Maybe I was overreacting to hurt feelings and wounded pride. Then I remembered their laughter during that overheard conversation, the casual cruelty of planning my disposal while living in my house, eating my food, spending my money, the nursing home deposit they'd already arranged, the real estate agent they'd already contacted. They'd made their choice 5 years ago, deciding I was a resource to be exploited rather than family to be cherished. Now they'd face the consequences of that choice. I picked up my phone and dialed Zachary. "I accept Clark's offer," I said without preamble. "Mr. Parker, are you certain?" "That's a significant reduction we might find better, I'm certain. How quickly can we close with cash and minimal contingencies?" 8 days, possibly less. 8 days, plenty of time before their return. "Drop the papers," I confirmed. As I hung up, something settled in my chest, a calm, cold certainty that felt like justice finally taking shape. They wanted to treat me like a burden. Fine. They'd discover exactly how expensive that burden could be when properly motivated. The house they'd planned to inherit would be gone. The money they'd counted on would disappear into my pocket, along with my willingness to subsidize their comfortable unemployment. Some lessons, I reflected, were worth every penny they cost. Wednesday morning brought unexpected validation. Zachary called with news that made my earlier doubts seem foolish. "Mr. Parker, I have remarkable developments. Clark's investment firm wants to expedite everything. They're offering an additional $10,000 above our agreed price for a guaranteed 7-day close." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "They're offering more money for faster service." "Exactly. Apparently, they have capital deployment deadlines, and your property fits perfectly into their Q2 acquisition targets. They want to close by next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, 5 days before Lauren's return from Hawaii. What's required from my end? Minimal. Since they're waiving inspection contingencies and paying cash, we primarily need signatures and title clearance. Their attorney has already begun paperwork." I walked to my kitchen window, looking out at the backyard where my grandchildren had played on equipment I'd purchased. Soon other children would play here while their parents paid rent to James Clark's investment company. "Mr. Parker, are you comfortable with the accelerated timeline?" Comfortable? I was euphoric. "Absolutely. What do I need to sign?" "I'll bring documents this afternoon. Clark's attorney wants to review everything tomorrow. Then we'll schedule closing for Monday." After hanging up, I sat in my silent house, surrounded by decades of accumulated memories that would soon belong to strangers. The irony wasn't lost on me. Clark's business urgency perfectly aligned with my revenge timeline. Lauren and her family were likely sitting on some Hawaiian beach at this moment, sipping tropical drinks and discussing their plans for my professional care. They probably felt quite clever about their surprise nursing home arrangement, confident that I'd never suspect their scheme. If only they knew that their supposed burden had outmaneuvered them completely. The phone rang again. Unknown number. Hawaii area code. "Dad," Bradley's voice this time, probably calling while Lauren was at the spa. "How are you holding up?" "Wonderfully well," I replied truthfully, "taking care of business, just as I promised." "Good to hear. Not getting into any trouble, I hope." He laughed at his own joke. "Nothing I can't handle," I assured him. "How's paradise treating you?" "Can't complain. Helicopter tour yesterday was incredible. Lauren's getting the massage right now. She said to tell you." Hi. Tell her I said hello. I hope you're both enjoying every moment. We are. Kids are loving the beach. Margaret and Walter are talking about extending the trip if we can change flights. Extending the trip? Even better for my timeline. That sounds wonderful. Don't worry about rushing back on my account. You sure? We don't want to leave you alone too long. I'm perfectly fine. Really, I'm handling everything better than you might expect. After Bradley hung up, I smiled at the beautiful symmetry. They were so confident in their plans, so certain I'd remain their compliant victim that they were actually considering giving me more time to complete my counter-strategy. By the time they returned to Florida, whether in 10 days or 14, they'd discover that their inheritance had evaporated and their house's sitter had evolved into something far more formidable than the burden they'd dismissed. I picked up Zachary's business card and traced its edges with my finger. Monday couldn't come fast enough. Thursday morning, I began the most satisfying project of my retirement, evicting my ungrateful family from the house they'd claimed as their inheritance. Working methodically, I started with Lauren's bedroom. 5 years of accumulated belongings filled every surface. Expensive clothes purchased with my grocery money, jewelry I'd given her for birthdays, photographs of vacations I'd funded but been excluded from. Each item went carefully into labeled boxes. Treating this like the move they never expected, I muttered, folding her designer blouses with the same care I'd shown when helping her pack for college decades ago. Bradley's possessions told their own story of failure and entitlement. Gaming equipment worth thousands, cryptocurrency guides and gambling books, tools he'd borrowed and never returned. I packed everything systematically, including the laptop, where he'd probably lost our family's financial security. The storage facility I'd chosen sat 20 minutes. 20 minutes away, close enough for eventual family access, far enough to feel like exile. The manager, a friendly woman named Rosa, helped me select a unit large enough for a family's complete household. Moving can be overwhelming, she observed, watching me sign the rental agreement. You seem remarkably organized about it. I've had time to plan, I replied truthfully. Loading took most of the afternoon. Professional movers I'd hired treated everything respectfully, understanding that family belongings deserved careful handling regardless of circumstances. Watching box after box disappear into the storage unit felt like watching justice take physical form. Walter and Margaret's items required special attention. Medications, important documents, the expensive luggage they'd purchased for this trip. I inventoried everything, ensuring they'd find their possessions organized and accessible when they eventually discovered their new living situation. That's quite a lot of stuff, commented Miguel, one of the movers, securing the last of the furniture. Family of 5 was, I answered simply. The final box contained Lauren's childhood mementos, school awards, family photographs, art projects I'd saved for decades. My hands trembled slightly as I placed it in the storage unit. These items represented the daughter I'd raised, not the woman who'd planned my disposal. After locking the unit, I handed Rosa an envelope containing 6 months' rent in advance. Someone will be by to collect everything eventually, I explained, probably sooner than they expect. By evening, I'd transformed my house into something I barely recognized. A clean, empty property ready for new owners. My own belongings remained. Teaching certificates on the walls, Sarah's photographs on the mantel, books that had shaped my thinking for 40 years. The apartment I'd rented nearby was modest but sufficient. 1 bedroom, kitchenette, enough space for a man learning to live independently again. As I arranged my clothes in the small closet, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete control over my environment. No one would eat my food without contributing. No one would use my utilities while complaining about my presence. No one would plan my future without consulting me. My phone rang as I unpacked my teaching awards. The caller ID showed a Hawaii number. Dad. Lauren's voice sounded relaxed, probably calling from their resort balcony. Just checking in. How are you managing? I looked around my sparse but peaceful apartment, then at the house keys. I'd soon surrender to James Clark. Extremely well, I said with complete honesty. Everything's exactly where it should be. Good to hear. We're having such an amazing time. The concierge arranged a private beach dinner tonight. Enjoy every moment, I encouraged. Make sure you create memories to last a lifetime. Because after Monday, those memories would be all they'd have left of their comfortable, parasitic existence. After ending the call, I sat in my new kitchen, drinking coffee, and contemplating the elegant justice of the situation. They'd wanted me gone from their lives. Now they'd discover what absence actually meant. Some lessons required complete immersion to be properly understood. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. I sat in Linda Martinez's notary office, surrounded by the documents that would legally cement my revenge. Across from me, James Clark reviewed the final paperwork with the efficiency of someone accustomed to property acquisitions. Everything appears in order, Linda announced, arranging the deed transfer documents in precise rows. Mr. Parker, I'll need to verify your identification one more time. I handed over my driver's license, watching her compare the photograph to my face. 62 years old, retired mathematics teacher, about to complete the most calculated decision of my life. Mr. Clark, your company's certified funds have been verified, she continued. We can proceed with our closing. Zachary sat nearby, tablet in hand, looking satisfied with his successful navigation of an impossible timeline. In 7 days, he'd managed what typically took weeks, a testament to the power of cash transactions and motivated sellers. The deed transfer is our first document, Linda explained, sliding papers across the table. This officially transfers ownership of 847 Maple Street from David Parker to Pinnacle Investment Holdings. 847 Maple Street, the address where Sarah and I had planned to grow old together, where Lauren had taken her first steps, where 3 generations of memories lived in every room. Now it belonged to strangers who'd convert it into rental income. I signed my name with steady hands. Property disclosure statements next, Linda continued. These confirm the condition of the house and any known issues. Known issues. Did emotional betrayal count as a structural problem? Did years of ingratitude affect the foundation's stability? I initialed each page methodically. Financial settlement sheet, James said, sliding another document forward. Final purchase price minus closing costs and agent commissions. The numbers told their own story. Purchase price reduced by $60,000 to ensure quick sale. Agent fees, legal costs, title insurance. The final amount still represented more money than I'd seen in one place since Sarah's life insurance payout 5 years ago. Money that would fund my independence while Lauren's family discovered what homelessness felt like. Your signature here makes the sale legally binding, Linda noted, pointing to the final line. I paused for a moment, pen hovering above the paper. Once signed, there would be no reversal. Lauren and Bradley would return from Hawaii to find their assumed inheritance had vanished into corporate ownership. Their comfortable parasitic lifestyle would end permanently. The pen touched paper. My signature flowed across the line in the same careful script I'd used to grade papers for 40 years. Congratulations, James said, extending his hand. Pinnacle Investment is pleased to add this property to our portfolio. We shook hands. The retired teacher and the investment executive completing a transaction that would devastate 4 people currently sipping tropical drinks in paradise. Commission payment, Zachary noted, accepting his check from James. Thank you both for making this possible. Linda gathered the signed documents, applying her notarial seal to each page. This concludes the closing. Mr. Parker, you have 30 minutes. 30 minutes to collect any remaining personal items. Then possession transfers to Pinnacle Investment. 30 minutes to say goodbye to the house where I'd been happy, where I'd been exploited, where I'd finally discovered the difference between family and parasites. I drove to 847 Maple Street one final time, using the keys I'd surrender in 20 minutes. 20 minutes, walking through empty rooms. I felt something I hadn't experienced since Sarah's death. Complete closure, the living room where Lauren had announced my exclusion from their Hawaii trip, the kitchen where I'd overheard their nursing home plans, the bedroom where I'd processed their betrayal and chosen justice over victimhood. Each room now belonged to James Clark's company, who'd rent them to tenants who'd actually pay for the privilege of living there. I collected Sarah's photo from the mantel and my teaching certificates from the walls. Everything else, furniture, appliances, fixtures, belonged to the new owners per our agreement. Standing in the foyer, where I'd welcomed Lauren's family 5 years ago, I felt the weight of transformation. The generous widower Rauer who'd offered sanctuary had evolved into something far more strategic. The burden they'd planned to dispose of had disposed of them instead. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown Hawaii number. Dad, having amazing time. Bradley proposed we extend trip another week. Hope you don't mind the extra alone time. Love, Lauren. An extra week. They were giving me even more time to savor my victory. I locked the door for the last time and handed the keys to James, who waited in the driveway with Zachary. Property transfer complete, I announced. As I drove away from 847 Maple Street, I caught a glimpse of James in my rear-view mirror, already on his phone discussing rental preparations. 4 days until Lauren's family returned to discover they'd been outmaneuvered by the burden they'd underestimated. The countdown to revelation had officially begun. 2 weeks after my family's departure for Hawaii, I sat in a beachfront hotel room in Maui, sipping coffee and waiting for Elizabeth Thompson's call. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was enjoying the Hawaiian vacation they'd denied me, funded by the sale of the house they'd considered their inheritance. My phone rang at precisely 4 o'clock, Florida time, David. Elizabeth's voice trembled with excitement. They're back. I set down my coffee cup, watching palm trees sway outside my window. How did they take the news? Oh, my word! You should have seen Lauren's face when she realized strangers were living in your house. She kept insisting it was some mistake, that they belonged there. I smiled, imagining Lauren's entitled confidence crashing against legal reality. What did the new owners tell them? Very professional about it, showed them the deed, explained they'd purchased the property legally. Lauren actually tried to push past them into the house. The mental image of my daughter's desperate attempt to reclaim what was never hers filled me with satisfaction. And Bradley, furious, started yelling about lawyers and lawsuits until the new owners threatened to call police. Margaret was crying. Walter kept asking where you'd gone. Did you give them the storage facility information? Just like you instructed. Handed Lauren the address and told them their belongings were safe. She crumpled the paper in her fist and demanded to know where you were. I leaned back in my hotel chair, watching a cruise ship drift across the horizon. What did you tell them? Exactly what you said to say, that you'd left town after selling the house, and they could contact you directly if they needed to discuss anything. Have they tried calling? Constantly. Lauren's been ringing your number every 10 minutes for the past hour. Bradley's left some rather colorful voicemails. I glanced at my phone, noting 43 missed calls and counting. I imagine they're quite motivated to reach me now. David, I have to ask, are you really in Hawaii, the Grand Wa Resort? Actually, same place they plan to stay without me. I paused, letting that sink in. Elizabeth, you've been incredibly helpful. I hope you understand why this was necessary. After watching them treat you like their personal ATM for 5 years, honestly, I'm impressed. Sarah would be proud of how you stood up for yourself. Sarah would indeed appreciate the mathematical precision of my revenge. Equal and opposite reaction to years of exploitation. What are they doing now? I asked. Last I saw, they were loading suitcases into a taxi. I assume heading to a hotel since they have nowhere else to go. Lauren looked absolutely devastated. Devastated? The same word I'd have used to describe my feelings when I overheard their nursing home plans. Justice had a beautiful symmetry to it. Elizabeth, if they ask you to call me again, please tell them I'm enjoying my vacation and will contact them when I'm ready. How long will you keep them waiting? Long enough for them to truly understand what it feels like to be discarded by family. After hanging up, I walked onto my hotel balcony, breathing in the tropical air my family had assumed I was too old to appreciate. Below, tourists enjoyed the beach they'd thought I couldn't handle. The helicopter tours Bradley had mentioned buzzed overhead, carrying passengers on adventures I'd supposedly outgrown. My phone buzzed with another call from Lauren. I let it ring, then another from Bradley. Ignored a text from Margaret. David, please call us. We need to talk. I deleted it without responding. For 5 years, they'd controlled my life through emotional manipulation and financial dependency. They'd planned my future without my input, assumed my compliance without my consent, treated my generosity as their entitlement. Now I controlled the terms of engagement. They could wait until I decided they'd learned sufficient humility to deserve my attention. I ordered room service and settled in to watch the sunset they'd tried to deny me. My phone still buzzing with increasingly desperate calls from the family who'd finally discovered the true cost of taking someone for granted. Some lessons, I reflected, required complete powerlessness to fully understand. They were about to become excellent students. 6 hours after Elizabeth's call, I boarded the evening flight from Orlando to Honolulu, using money from the house sale to purchase the first-class seat my family had deemed me too old to occupy. As the Boeing 77 lifted off into the Florida sunset, I settled into leather comfort and examined my phone screen. 43 missed calls, 17 voicemails, and counting. Each notification represented another moment of their desperation, another crack in the entitled confidence they'd maintained for 5 years. I scrolled through the call log methodically. Lauren, Bradley, Margaret, Walter, Lauren again, Bradley again, watching the progression of their panic play out in digital timestamps. The first voicemail left 20 minutes. 20 minutes after Elizabeth's call carried Lauren's familiar, commanding tone. Dad, I don't know what game you're playing, but this isn't funny. Call me back, immediately. By the 10th message, anger had crept into Bradley's voice. This is insane, David. You can't just sell our house without Tiffany telling us. We're getting lawyers involved. Message 15 revealed Margaret's tears. Please, David, we don't understand what's happening. Where are you? We need to talk. The final voicemail recorded just before takeoff captured Lauren's complete capitulation. Dad, please answer. We'll do anything. Just call us back. We have nowhere to go. Nowhere to go, the exact phrase they'd planned for my nursing home conversation. As we climbed toward cruising altitude, I gazed down at the lights of Florida shrinking below. Somewhere in that scattered illumination, my family huddled in a hotel room, frantically calling a number that would remain unanswered until I decided they'd learned appropriate humility. The flight attendant appeared with champagne service. "Celebrating anything special tonight, Mr. Parker?" "Independence Day," I replied, accepting the crystal flute. About 40 years overdue. 9 hours stretched ahead. 9 hours of Pacific Ocean between me and their desperate attempts to re-establish control. 9 hours to savor the complete reversal of power dynamics that had governed my life since Sarah's death. I opened my laptop and composed an email I wouldn't send. A letter explaining everything they'd done wrong. Every moment of casual cruelty, every dismissive comment about my age and capabilities. The writing process felt therapeutic, cathartic, like grading papers on the most important lesson I'd ever taught. But they didn't deserve explanations yet. Explanations came after consequences, after understanding, after genuine remorse, replaced entitled anger. My phone buzzed with call 44. Lauren again. I watched her name illuminate my screen, then fade to black as the call went to voicemail. The cycle of desperation would continue throughout my flight, while I enjoyed the meal service they'd assumed I was too old to appreciate. Below us, the Pacific stretched endlessly, dark water reflecting starlight like scattered diamonds. We were crossing time zones, leaving their crisis behind with each nautical mile. By the time I reached Honolulu, they'd be waking up to their second day of homelessness, their second day of understanding what it meant to be discarded by family. I deleted the unsent email and closed my laptop. Some lessons couldn't be taught through words. They required complete immersion in consequence. My family was learning that bitter curriculum now, discovering what it meant to need someone who no longer needed them. The math teacher in me appreciated the elegant symmetry. 5 years of exploitation balanced by however long it took for genuine remorse. 5 years of taking me for granted, paid for with however many days of taking nothing for granted ever again. As the plane carried me toward Hawaiian sunrise, I finally understood what Sarah had meant about knowing where money goes. It had gone toward the most expensive but valuable education my family would ever receive. The price of learning that some burdens, when properly motivated, could bear far more weight than anyone imagined. My phone showed 46 missed calls when I finally turned it face down and fell asleep 30,000 feet above their world of consequences, heading toward the paradise they'd thought I was too old to enjoy. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.